Today, we're diving into a topic that weighs heavily on many parents: how to manage the rising education costs without overwhelming your finances. With education inflation often outpacing the general cost of living, it can feel like a daunting task. But with careful planning and the right investment strategy, it doesn't have to be as overwhelming as it seems. Once again, we're joined by Nicola Langridge from Private Client Holdings, who will share her expert advice on how to overcome financial overwhelm while preparing for rising educational costs without compromising your broader savings goals. Nicola, it's great to have you back. Let's start by differentiating between saving and investing.
Okay, so saving to me is like filling a water tank with water. It's easy to access, it's safe, you can use it at any time, but water doesn't grow. Versus planting a tree. A tree will take time to grow, but it will eventually bear fruit. So it's the same as saving your money. Inflation will eventually eat away at that saving, the same as evaporation will decrease the amount of water in your tank.
The rise in education costs was named one of the biggest movers in March, leaving parents feeling overwhelmed by the financial commitment. So, what advice would you offer to those unsure of where to start? Can they create a budget that factors in education investment without putting too much strain on their finances?
Yeah, so when we look at inflation, you also have to remember that it differs per country. So if you're looking at an offshore goal with offshore education, you're looking at their inflation, which at the moment around the UK, it's about 4.5%. When I looked at US figures, it tends to vary by state, it seems a little bit, but it also tends to be around 4.5%. In South Africa, around 2008, 2009, it used to be up at about 10%, which was quite a bit more than the normal inflation. But it seems to, since 2016, have come down and be averaging around 6%. So we tend to use 6% as the inflation when we're doing our calculators. Just looking every year, March, the new figures come out with Stats SA. Last year it was 5.7. It has upped this year to about 6.4%. And interestingly, high school went up by about 7.3%, whereas tertiary education and primary school went up by 5.9. So it's important to take those figures into account as well, especially when choosing the investments that you're putting away for education. You need to be getting at least inflation plus 3 or 4% to make sure that what you are investing is more than inflation. Has inflation worked into those investments?
I think that's such an important point. I think often we look at it from a blanket perspective and we don't really take into account that tertiary level education may change or may increase at a different rate to primary school or high school. And just having that background and that information helps you make more informed decisions around your children's education. So financial circumstances can change, whether it's an unexpected windfall or a financial setback. How can parents adapt their education investment plan as life unfolds? And what flexibility should they build into their strategies?
Like with any financial goals, there's going to be ups and downs. And that's why it's so important to be checking in with your advisor to inform them with where you're at. You might be having a slow year financially, or there might be other things that need a sudden focus, like buying a property or a medical emergency. And your advisor will be flexible and build that into your plan at that time. And also quite important to consider what happens if you pass away or if your partner passes away. We were just chatting about a story where a client of mine had, the children were young. They were 2, 5, and 10 years old, where her husband suddenly passed away. And very fortunately, he had taken out an education protector on his life insurance that is covering all 3 children for primary, high, and tertiary education.
Amazing.
And at private schools, which is so amazing, because had she not had that policy taking care of the kids' education, which we know takes out a huge part of your monthly income, she would not have been okay financially. So it is quite an in-depth topic and not something we're going to delve into today, but very important to check in with your advisor as well to make sure that you are covered for those unforeseen circumstances. And the same, while we're saving for education, making sure that there's also an emergency fund, because there could be all kinds of other little expenses related to education pop up. So important to not only save for education, but also have that emergency fund ready for when life happens.
I was going to say, like Parenting 101, plan for the unexpected.
Definitely.
Thank you, Nicola, for walking us through these strategies. The prospect of rising education costs can feel overwhelming at first, but with a clear plan in place, it becomes much more manageable. Whether you're adjusting for inflation, preparing for life surprises, or simply starting with what you can afford, investing in your child's education is a journey that requires balance and flexibility.